accept the award for Martin Scorsese and Nicholas Pileggi, a man who's been on the receiving end of a James Cameron tirade more than anyone else in Seattle, screenwriter Andrew Chapman, everybody. Please welcome Andrew.
Thank you. Back at the 2020 Awards. Second time. So, I was just going to get up and kind of complain about the syndicate's choice, but then Chris said, where are you, Chris?
He's in the lighting booth.
He said that he would cut the microphone off if I did that, so not gonna happen. He said he wanted me to up the level of discourse in tonight's thing. So, but of course, begs the question of why you would pick me to up the level of discourse. So I maybe wouldn't have chosen Goodfellas, but the syndicate did, and they did so overwhelmingly. Chris said that the vote wasn't even close. Goodfellas won by a mile. And I'm guessing that already it's won 2 awards, and it's going to kick ass tonight. In a bunch of categories. Director, film, it's just going to rock. And kind of like Mary said, 20 years ago, the film that won Best Adapted Screenplay, Dances with Wolves, it didn't even make the list tonight. It had 7 Academy Awards 20 years ago, and it kicked ass. It was a cultural phenomenon, and it's getting nothing. I find that kind of interesting. I mean, that is sort of what the 2020 awards are all about. So I have a theory about why this is. I have lots of theories, and you'll have to put up with them a little bit tonight, being a professional blowhard. So I want to kind of deconstruct these 2 winners. First off, there's Dances with Wolves. It won 7 Academy Awards. It made $200 million 20 years ago. It was, everybody talked about the film. It was a cultural touchstone, really, it really was. And now it's a punchline. It's like, you know, Sleeps with Goats or Shits in the Woods. I mean, this is a movie that people make fun of, and nobody watches. Goodfellas did okay. It made $46 million. It cost $25 million. It got good to excellent reviews, but it wasn't like the movie of the year. I think that now it kind of is. Of that year, it is the movie. 20 years ago, Dances with Wolves had a big star. He was at the height of his fame, and it had a message, inclusion, sort of a PC message that people loved. It was a redo of a really beloved genre. It was also, my theory, sentimental, and worst of all, it was sincere. It wore its heart on its sleeve. Goodfellas, on the other hand, is violent, dark, cynical, it has a really dim view of human nature, and it's also one other thing, in my view, it's male. It's very, very male. What women there are in Goodfellas are cardboard cutouts. Even that clip they just showed, that's like a stand-in for a mom. That's Martin Scorsese's mother. She's not even a real actress. It's true. You could argue that Dances with Wolves is a very female movie. And I'm not saying it's a great movie, but it won 7 Academy Awards. It was all about Kevin Costner, who's a slightly soft actor, getting in touch with his female side. Here's my theory. My theory is that tastemakers, aficionados, film buffs, us, and I include myself, we run screaming from sentimental, sincere, and female. What we love, and I include myself in this, is cynical and male. Why we love that? Maybe it confirms our dim view of human nature. Maybe, in my case, I think, sort of more to the point, it confirms what I want other people to think my view of human nature is. But I think that cynical is like armor. Male is like armor. It's cool and it's safe. Case in point, AFI's top 100 films. They did this big list, 100 films of all time, and I think of AFI as like the ultimate arbiter of film taste, right? These are their top 10 movies all time, starting from 1 to 10. Citizen Kane, The Godfather, Casablanca, Raging Bull, Singing in the Rain, which I can't quite understand, Gone with the Wind, Lawrence of Arabia, Schindler's List, Vertigo, and The Wizard of Oz. Now, I like those movies, but with a few exceptions, they are cynical, dark, and they are male. Half of them have no women practically in them at all. Like none. And if they do have women, they're, you know, patsy wives and hookers who get the crap beat out of them. Even the ones that are female, like Gone with the Wind, their female characters are incredibly cynical. The sincere ones, like Schindler's List, are about a guy who sides with the Nazis to save Jews. So he's a cynic inside of a really sincere movie. Sing in the Rain, can't explain that one. But even the kid movie Wizard of Oz is weird and dark. Interesting, of those, and I know I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here, of those top 10 movies, only 3 of those films are in the top 100 of all time for box office, with Gone with the Wind blowing the rest of them out of the park. So here's the top 10 highest grossing films domestic adjusted for inflation of all time. They are Gone with the Wind, Star Wars, Sound of Music, E.T., 10 Commandments, Titanic, Jaws, Dr. Zhivago, Exorcist, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. With 1 or 2 exceptions, I would argue that they are the exact opposite of the AFI films. That they are sentimental, sincere, they wear their hearts on their sleeves, and they have strong female components or themes. And I'd say that the difference between those 2 lists parallels almost exactly the difference between Dances with Wolves and Goodfellas, which is going to kick ass tonight. And I would guess that Dances with Wolves is going to get zip, nothing. It didn't even make the list. So what's the takeaway for me as a screenwriter, and for the rest of us who I think work in the business also, who would prefer not to work at Starbucks? Sincere and female plays. It plays now. It sells. It makes money. You ignore it at your own peril. Audiences love it. But making a movie that is both of those things, you run the very real risk of either being forgotten or laughed at. That makes me a little sad. I mean, I feel like it makes me uncomfortable with my own artistic sort of values. On the other hand, if you make your movie violent, cynical, and male, it may not get you the top box office, but you will kick ass with tastemakers, and you'll win a 2020 award.